All right, welcome to Careers in the Arts. I'm Brooks Tracy, and today I have with me Katie Nickel. How are you doing, Katie?
I'm doing really well. How about you?
I'm doing great, thank you, and thank you for being with us. So let's go ahead and jump right into the first question. Could you please describe your job?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So, my job is called the School and Teacher Program Coordinator, and I work at the John and Mabel Ringling Museum of Art in Sarasota. And so, what that basically means is that I'm an educator. I do a lot of teaching, but I don't teach in the formal classroom. I really teach in the museum. I teach with specific objects. So, it's similar to being a teacher, but it is a little bit different. And with our job, we teach not only with the art museum, we have a huge art museum, but we also have a circus museum, a historic house, we have grounds and garden. I mean, there's so much there to discover. So I really get the opportunity to learn about a bunch of different things and kind of share my passion with other people.
Very cool. And it sounds like you oversee a lot at the museum. So try to, as best you can, answer this question. What is a average day in the life of a school and teacher program coordinator like?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a lot of emails, to be honest with you. I feel like a lot of jobs is a lot of emails these days, but on any given day, it's different. And that's one of the things that I love the most about my job is that it varies. But on, let's say an average day, I might give a tour, an hour-long tour to a group of high school students who are studying art. And we might talk about the art that they are making and how that relates to some really cool art objects at the Ringling. And I might go straight from that into a kindergarten classroom and do a story time program and tie that into art and baking as well. So it really allows me to interact with a whole bunch of different people from, high school students, kindergartners, maybe going into a meeting with, a donor, a museum donor who has a really interesting work of art that they're interested in giving us, all over the place, really. But at the end of the day, it is a lot of emails.
That's awesome. And one of the things I really like to do with these videos is to spotlight not only the career itself, but how an individual becomes qualified and gets these careers. So
Mhm.
the next question I have is, could you please share your educational background and how you came to be in this position?
Yeah. So when I was graduating from high school, I knew I wanted to go to college, didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I went to the University of Florida and I ended up with a bachelor's degree. I know, go Gators. I ended up with a bachelor's degree in anthropology, which is something I thought I wanted to do. Um, Left after graduating with my bachelor's, worked a couple years, realized I didn't want to do anthropology, and I went back to school, got a master's degree in something called museology, which is the study of museums, because I had fallen in love with museums and teaching, and I wanted to do that for a living. So I got my master's degree, and kind of immediately after that, ended up here in Sarasota.
Very cool. And I had looked over your resume and I saw that on there. I thought it was interesting how your initial major was in, I think it was cultural anthropology, was what I saw. And then you got the master's degree in, was it museumology? Is that right?
Yeah, yeah,
That's a
or
very,
museum studies, yeah.
okay, very, very cool. Did you notice if there was is there any like correlation between those careers? Was it kind of like, are you able to pull from well, first of all, could you maybe explain what anthropology is? Because I know that's probably a new career in itself that people are hearing about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to describe anthropology as the study of people. It's the study of humankind, where we've been, how we behave, where we're going. And cultural anthropology is the study of like human cultures. So how does culture get started? When does a habit that a lot of us have, of brushing our teeth in the morning, for example, when does that become something that everyone in the culture does? That's something that really had interested me. And that actually really led into my job now in an art museum because after all, we don't always know about like the people that came in the past, the cultures of the past, except through the things that they make. And what is art really after all, except for, humans' creativity kind of manifested into an object. Art is always made by humans. And so it really tied in well to what I'm doing now in the art museum, studying material culture, studying the things that people leave behind, and they make creatively.
Yeah, and I can see where that comes to be an advantage because there is just such that fine line between art and history. I mean, a lot of times
Yeah.
they are almost one and the same. They're documenting each other. So, how about this? Thinking back on college with both that undergrad and graduate degree, what course that you took in college do you think best prepared you for your current role?
That is, I'm going to cheat and tell you two courses, I'm afraid.
That's
Um,
fine. Fine.
the first one, the course that really profoundly changed my life was a course called Race and Racism. And I had never before heard really of either two terms described in such a profound way. It changed the way that I think of people, it changed the way that I treat people. And it's had a really big impact on kind of how I can take like my passion and my compassion for other people and manifest that into the world. How can I make a difference? But from an art side too, I had this great art class. I am not a sculptor at all, but one of my favorite classes that I took when I was in college was a 3D class, a 3D sculpture class. I'm not good at it. I learned that right away, but it was really freeing for me to find something that I love doing, that helps me express myself creatively, but that also I had to really work at, really kind of try very hard at. And like, I had to learn a lot of failure that way. I'm still not very good at sculpture making, but I do love it. And so that's something that kind of being comfortable with that failure is something that I learned a lot from.
And that's one of those things that I don't need much of an excuse to tout how great the University of Florida is. I haven't gone there myself, but in the program I was in the career of or the College of Fine Arts as well. It was the art education program, and one of the things that UF and specifically the College of Arts does so well with a lot of their careers is they really, or with their majors, is that
Yeah.
they take a real holistic approach to what you'll be doing. So, like you just said, you'll be in a position where you will be having to study, oversee these actual objects. So they want you to have experience with the making of it, understanding the history of it. So that's one of the things that they really do a great job of, and I can see it's something that probably ends up being a massive asset to your career.
Yeah, I mean, I use the things I learned in that class every day. And even though I don't consider myself a practicing artist anymore, absolutely, that's one of the things I love so much about the University of Florida and my time there. Both of my degrees are from there. I liked it so much, I went back for more because you do learn how everything is connected. And that's a really valuable skill that we can learn in honestly in any career, not only careers in the arts.
That's great. And now, could you go into how you first became interested in the arts and how it kind of developed into that was the career path you wanted to go on?
Yeah. When I was younger in middle school, I got involved in two art forms. I got involved in band and music. I played the trumpet. And I also took a lot of visual arts classes for the first time. And I fell in love with both of them. And I did both all through middle and high school. Um, and for anyone who also does both, I think it's a really interesting thing to look at how two different art forms interact and what that does to your creativity. It was really interesting for me. And I knew in high school when I knew I wanted to go to college. I knew I was looking at colleges. I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I knew that I loved the arts, both music and visual art. And I knew that I wanted to do something with both of them. Um, for my undergraduate degree, I didn't end up, like I said, I ended up in anthropology. I had seven majors, and that's okay, to figure out what you want to do. But I did also kind of afterwards, after graduating with my bachelor's, you travel, went to a lot of museums, and I kind of realized like, oh, wow, actually, I do want a career in the arts. I do want to go back and pursue this forever because there's nothing I love more than being around art and being around artists.
Yeah, and it's just a testament to even if it wasn't arts, it's just whatever your passion is, making sure that you're following that and finding what the careers are. So one thing I'm going to do is since you work at a museum, which is such a visual treasure, is I'm going to open up and share my screen
Yeah.
to the Ringling Museum's website. And as I got this up here, maybe let me ask you this question. What's your favorite part about working at the Ringling?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think I love the variety. I cannot think of another museum in the world or another place even in the world where you can go and look at some fine works of art, Peter Paul Rubens, some of these great works of art, and then turn right around and learn about the history of the circus. It is such an, like, I like to call it eclectic, right? It's like this random assortment of history and places and artworks, and I just love it because I'm always discovering something new. I'm learning every single day at my job, and that's something that I value really highly.
And, you know, could you tell us what is it, since you're someone who's been in a lot of museums before, what is it that really makes the Ringling a unique museum?
One of the things that I think is really interesting about it is that it's here. It's in Sarasota. Usually, to see a collection like the Ringling, you have to go to like a nation's capital or a really big city to find artwork that is of this high quality. But we have it right here in Sarasota, and that to me is just absolutely remarkable. That we can have such an amazing collection right here in our backyard, right on Sarasota Bay, is just fantastic. I think another really, if I'm allowed to cheat and have two, I think another
That's perfectly
an-
fine.
another thing that makes the Ringling so special is the people that work there. Every time we go to the museum, if you were to visit, with your family or by yourself, people really love working there. And that's something that you don't often find in any workplace, that most of the people you see in the galleries or, who lead your tour or what have you, just love what they do. They just love being in the presence of art like this. And I think that that's really, really special, and their passion comes through. And I think that's what makes the Ringling such a lovely place.
Yeah, and it's like you said about how it's local. One of the great things about not only is it local, but there's a lot of great portions of it that are featuring local history there. I know
Yes.
the Circus Museum, its namesake, and the John and Mabel Ringling who began the collection. Local institutes or local individuals that were here. And I know one thing that I always love whenever I go to visit the museum is how unique the layout is when you go there.
Mm.
It's so wide open. There's so many paths that you can walk on. It's just a great place to experience. You're out in nature. It's a really very cool layout. Um, Now, let me ask you this: going back to looking at some of these, you know, exhibits that are going on in your job at the museum, tell me, how is it determined what programs you'll be coordinating? Is it something that you actively seek out? Is it something that you're told? Do you work individually, together? How does that all work?
Yeah, so in museums, everyone has their own job. So, you definitely wouldn't want me to hang the paintings on the wall. I'm not very good at that. You don't want to trust me with that. But at the same time, the folks whose job it is to hang paintings on the wall, we wouldn't really want them to work on a tour because that's not the type of, they're not teachers. So for me, for with my work, I focus, like I said earlier, I'm the school and teacher program coordinator, and I think a lot of what I do is in the name. I work with schools and I work with teachers. So I'm really lucky that I get to kind of decide what that means. I have a lot of interpretation. I can and take what I think is best for schools or what teachers tell me is best for schools, and I can make this program that's for these students specifically. So I have a lot of creativity in my job to kind of do what I think is right, or to kind of create a new program if it's something that I think, um, as long as it's within schools and teachers, right? So I definitely need to make sure that school tours are happening, teachers have workshops to go to, and that I'm not hanging any photographs on the wall, because that's not, I wouldn't be given that responsibility.
And that's a great segue for this question. What initiatives or projects you've worked on at the Ringling are you most proud of?
So I'm really proud of a few things. We have started very recently a program that we call it as an accessibility program. So it's making art accessible and available to everybody. And so one of the things that I am most proud of is working on a program for students who are blind and their classmates. Because I firmly believe that visual art is for everyone. I think that it can inspire us all and like completely transform somebody's life. And just because you may not be able to see the artwork doesn't mean you can't experience it. There's so much to be gained from visual art beyond the visual, right? And so the thing that I'm most proud of is putting together a program that helps build some bridges between students who are blind or low vision and their classmates. And we can do that through art making, and we can do that through kind of exploring works of art, in a very particular way.
And one question I have for you, since you've had some experience there at the Ringling for a few years, you cannot help but go around this town and see a silhouette or a reproduction of the statue of David. And I know that is just such a crown jewel of the museum. And I know it's kind of a misconception where some people I've talked to, they think it's maybe the original, or they don't really understand like what exactly the significance is behind that particular statue. Could you maybe explain that just for some people? Because I know locally that's probably just a lot of questions that people have.
Yeah, we get that question all the time, like almost every day. So right in the middle of our Museum of Art courtyard, and our museum's kind of shaped like a U, and kind of right in the middle of it is David. Ah, yeah, there he is. And this isn't the original. This is what we call a cast. So the original that was actually made by Michelangelo, he was a Renaissance artist. He sculpted it out of marble, a single block of marble. It's phenomenal. And that original is still in Florence, Italy, where it was made. So it doesn't travel. It will never be here. It will always be in Florence, Italy. But when you have these great works of art that are sculptures, about 100 years ago, a lot of other people wanted to own a piece of that history as well. So there is a company in Italy, they still exist, it's called the Curazzi Foundry. They started making casts of these original marble or bronze sculptures, and they would make these reproductions that you could sell. So John Ringling bought this David from that company, and it is a cast. So this is actually made out of bronze. It's made out of metal, but it is a perfect replica of the marble original, except that this one is about 1 inch bigger. That's the only difference.
Well, that makes it even better.
I know. There's 1 more inch to love there. Yeah, so it's really great. And John Ringling installed it right there in the center of his courtyard, because this is an important work of art, like in art history. And so he really wanted to put Sarasota on the map, saying that we have this great work of art too. And art lovers from all over the United States can come and look at this one instead of having to go all the way to Italy. So that's kind of how it became a symbol of Sarasota, because David's been standing there in the courtyard for about almost 100 years now.
Yeah, and it's one of my 2 favorite places at the Ringling to visit. One is the courtyard. I always love to go in there and see everything. And David is so centrally located and prominent, higher elevated than all the others. The other place that I love to go in there is the circus miniature. That is a really fun exhibit. Do you all do educational initiatives with the circus portion of the museum as well?
Yeah, we absolutely do. So my background's in art, so I do more with the art museum. But one of the things that was exciting when I took this job was I all of a sudden had to like brush off my history skills and learn the history of the circus. So absolutely, we've been talking about art a lot because, this is a thing about career in the arts, but yeah, I know a lot about circus now. And we use the circus in our programs. I know, I never thought I would say that. But we use the circus in a lot of our programs as well, because you can really study American history through the history of the circus. And so it's a really nice, it's fascinating. It's just a fascinating thing to learn about. People are so curious about it, and so it's really fun to get to program around the circus as well.
So here's the important question: have you learned to juggle?
No, it's like making a sculpture. I'm not sure I'm ever going to be very good at it, but I've learned how to fail.
That's very funny. Well, that's going to bring us to our final question that I've got for you. So to conclude this interview, the final question I have is, after reflecting back on your career and taking into account your life experiences, what advice would you like to pass along to the next generation of students interested in a field like yours?
My advice for all of you would be to never stop learning. I think that the day that we stop learning is the day that we stop caring about ourselves and about our fellow humans. And I think that every new day is a new opportunity to learn something about someone new, learn a new skill, learn a new fact. We're learn from our experiences, right? Have a new experience and learn from that. We are learning every single day of our lives. And my advice to you all would be to try to bring some awareness to that. Think about what is it that you're learning and what does that mean for you moving forward as a human in this life. So best of luck as you go through this life learning and growing and exploring. And I hope that you find a lot of joy in that.
And that's a beautiful way to put it. Thank you very much. I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and to share for my students. Thank you for sharing all of your expertise in the field, and I hope that you stay safe and you keep up the great work.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on here. It was so much fun.